Welcome, everyone, to the Jury Award Conversation Series. Today, we'll be speaking with the winners of the Drama Feature Screenplay Award presented by Writers Guild of America East, Comedy Feature Screenplay Award presented by Sony Pictures Animation, Horror Feature Screenplay Award, and the Sci-Fi Feature Screenplay Award. Before we hop into the conversation, I just want to briefly touch on some context. So this is the 27th year of the Austin Film Festival script competition. And this year we received a record number of 13,175 scripts. Out of this bunch, we had 5 respective finalists within the drama and comedy feature screenplay categories, and 3 respectively within the horror and sci-fi feature categories. Our goal each year with the competition is to help discover the next generation of writers and help all writers who engage with us hone and advance their craft. So without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our winners, so to start, we have the winner of the Drama Feature Screenplay Award presented by Writers Guild of America East, which is Edward Drake, who wrote The Young Woman. The next up is the winner of the Comedy Feature Screenplay Award presented by Sony Pictures Animation, which is Stephen Sloot, who wrote Harold Doesn't Die. The winners of the Horror Feature Screenplay Award, which is Sean J.S. Jourdan and John Ingle, who co-wrote Open House. And the winner of the Sci-Fi Feature category, which is Mark Ellis, who wrote Chupacabra. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Really excited to get to speak with you all. I know you all kind of just found out that you're winners, so I know the excitement is probably still in the air, and so anyway, we just really are grateful to get to talk with you today. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and jump into the first question, which is we're going to kind of take it back, to down memory lane, and just kind of I'm just curious to know what sparked your interest in writing screenplays, and at what point in your journey you started to really kind of like take your writing seriously. So. I guess, Edward, would you want to go ahead and start with that?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. So I come from a land down under originally. I'm from Australia. I moved over to the US when I was 20, and it's all I've ever wanted to do is work in film and write. And I've been writing ever since I was a kid. And I love bringing to life stories and just creating worlds that the audience can kind of slip away from the problems of this reality and jump into another reality for a little while. And super grateful that you guys responded to the script, and big ups to the Austin Film Festival.
Great. Sean?
Oh, yeah. It's kind of the same thing. I love to read, love to write ever since I was a kid, but I really kind of got serious into dramatic writing, playwriting with a background in drama. But then went into screenplays when I was pursuing my MFA. And, I guess basically it comes down to probably what everybody on this panel loves to do is just to make stuff up, if you need to edit that. But, there's nothing better than to make stuff up and then see it come to life. To me, that's like the magic of this whole thing, and it's priceless. It's why we struggle, and it's worth it. It really is worth it.
Yeah, I'll go next. When I was a kid, I was real spacey, man. I just daydreamed all the time. And once I started really latching on to movies, the daydreams became movies I was making up. And that was just my whole childhood. Instead of studying or paying attention a lot of the time. And as I grew older, I ended up going to film school and thinking I'm going to be a director. I never really thought about the screenwriting aspect of it. I just thought, oh, the director's the guy that makes the movie. And then I got to school and I directed a few shorts and I said, I don't want to direct anything. I think I'd much rather write these things. That was actually the more enjoyable process of making the student films for me. And the directing was the most stressful, thing that I'd ever done up to that point. So I settled in and realized what I was really doing all this time was just daydreaming the story and making stuff up like everybody else is saying. And wouldn't that be great to just sit in coffee shops and do that for a living? And so I just put my nose into it and still working on it as hard as I can.
I don't believe in signs. I'm not that kind of a person. And but after, this is a true story, after a failed internship at an orphanage in Bolivia, I was looking for a job. I'm Canadian. I'm in Vancouver Island right now. And I was looking for a job. I was 22, and I was walking in the early days of the internet trying to get to the job place to look at the little cue cards where the jobs were. And every day I'm passing by this huge billboard, and it's this beautiful blue sky, and it's February in Halifax, and it's cold and miserable. And the sign was, all it said in big white letters, "What do you love doing? Why aren't you doing it?" And I thought, that's a stupid ad. And I walked along, and I'm day after day, I'm seeing this sign until finally, like, it didn't say like Coca-Cola, or it didn't say anything. I'm like, who paid for this? Why is this here? And then eventually, after day 9, day 10, I'm looking at this sign, and I'm like, well, what do I love doing? And why aren't I doing it? And I decided that day I wanted to write stories. And it's funny timing, because 7 years ago yesterday, I got serious. I never went to film school. I did all sorts of other stuff. And 7 years ago yesterday, I had left Toronto on my motorcycle with all of my earthly possessions, and I rode to Los Angeles, and I started to take things seriously. And so ups and downs, and here I am. And and I also want to thank Austin Film Festival. I've been before, and it's a festival I really admire. I think you guys do really, really good work, especially for writers, as everybody knows, and it feels pretty huge honor to be here right now.
Awesome. Yeah, I right off the bat would echo that sentiment. I'm just deeply, deeply honored to be among just such talented company. Feel super lucky to be in this position. I mean, like a lot of the other winners, I also wrote a lot growing up. My first story used characters from Disney's Hercules, and it was about how an Arctic fox turned white. And I kind of, similar to other stories, I mean, I've done a lot of daydreaming as well, and I would stage like, pretend movies with action figures as I was growing up. But I eventually, in college, I went to school for creative writing actually at the University of Houston, and then I graduated and did a bunch of random things. And I would say I'm just at the point where I'm really starting to take it more seriously. I've been skirting and trying and starting and failing a lot, and so this is like, as I'm sure everyone has, but this is feels like the start of something really, really big. So couldn't be happier to be here.
Well, yeah. So I guess just diving a bit deeper. I'm curious, what kind of stories kind of attract you most, and also does your inspiration typically stem from the same place, or is it like, I don't know, is it across different mediums, or is it in life, or is it in media? I'm just curious where that inspiration kind of comes from.
For me, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but it always ends up being some weird little thought in my head, and I'll be like, oh, that's kind of a weird thing, or funny, or whatever it is, and it percolates for such a long time. And it was pointed out to me by a friend of mine who reads a lot of my stuff. I always do the same thing over and over again, and I take the regular world and I change one thing. And I didn't realize I was doing that, and it often ends up being a what if kind of a situation, like, oh, what if we all knew the day we were going to die? What would happen to all of society? And it's one thing, and that's the premise of the script that I wrote for this competition, and of course it changes everything. And so I realize I do it over and over again. I change one thing, and I glom onto that single detail, and then it ends up opening up a door to a whole different world than I live in. That's how it kind of works for me.
For me, it's a lot of different things. I don't know if I have this one like well that I draw from, but sometimes it'll be watching another film and thinking I know what's going to happen, and then that thing doesn't happen at all, and then I go, hey, that's my idea now, I guess, you know. So sometimes I'll kind of run a different direction with something. Sometimes it's just I can be inspired by genre and say, man, I really want to just play around with this little idea I'm having and place it in this genre. And in the case of Open House, it was Sean coming to me with an idea and saying, let's break this thing together. And it was a small impetus of an idea. And we just cracked it together, which was brand new for me. I'd never collaborated with anyone. So I guess I'm pretty open to anywhere that I can get story ideas from and then just put the work in.
This is your first collaboration between you two?
It is, yes.
Whoa, pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what John said, I'm kind of like like a geologist, walking through a creek bed in terms of just like picking up different things, or, I may read something in the news, or I may meet somebody who tells me a story, or I may be working on a doc and come across an interesting character. And then it's kind of combining all these things and being, hey, you know what? This would maybe make a cool story. And it's kind of a fun journey, it's how I justify surfing the internet and reading random Wikipedia articles.
Yep.
Great excuse to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I wish that there was something more scientific about it that I could reproduce, pretty consistently. But I feel like when you're trying to be inspired, it never happens. And then when you least expect it, it strikes. But I mean, I think some reliable sources are, if you can look back at your own life and if anything interesting has happened, and similar to what Stephen was saying, you sort of imagine if it had gone slightly differently. I was really influenced a lot with like magical realism as a movement, just the idea that there's something sort of mystical about everyday life, and really running with that. And then I'm also drawn to horror stories, so just sort of taking like everyday fears and trying to transform or personify them in some way that makes a good metaphor. Like I think The Babadook is a really good example of a movie that does that well. So just life experience and synthesizing everything that you hear. I think probably most of inspiration just boils down to like, are you a good listener?
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. I think it's that truth as well. I think that's also kind of what Sean was getting at, is that if you can just find a story or a way into a story that can speak to the truth of the world around us and to how we feel, and how we can understand the events that are shaping the world today, and also how to communicate with other people. That's kind of like my holy trinity. Is just like what feels real and what's going to speak to the audience. So I think with so much content out there right now, it's only the stories that have that truth that are going to cut through the noise. So yeah, Babadook was fantastic because I thought it just spoke to that experience of raising a child and the madness of it.
Love that. That's great. Kind of, some of y'all touched on kind of, the genre specific, that you focus on a specific genre, and clearly you all are kind of in, at least with these scripts, are in different genres. So I'm curious if y'all ever focus and like I guess cross over to different genres and kind of write in that. I know Mark, you're with horror, but have you dipped into comedy at all? Like and if so, is there a reason for that, or is it just kind of you're just exploring it, and how does that maybe influence how you kind of move forward with just your writing in general and
Sure.
your practice in general? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that most of my ideas probably are based on horror, and I think that there's maybe a bit of like self pigeonholing when you start thinking like, oh, like as you get older, you think that you've developed a certain set of like preferences and ideas about like the world and your writing in general, maybe. But so I'm drawn to horror in general, but I think it's some of my best ideas are not horror at all, and some of the ones that really resonate the most with other people when I just sort of give little snippets about what I'm thinking of working on next. A lot of what people really like aren't my horror ideas. They're, in fact, the one that I submitted for this contest is not really a horror. I mean, there might be some suspenseful moments, but I mean, it's not too different than like Stand By Me or The Goonies or something. I mean, it's more of like an adventure film in some ways. But I think there's that element of truth, like we were saying earlier. Like there, to me, like it was a true story to me. It felt really nice, and I think the best thing to do is really follow that. I when I had the idea for this script, I actually I was telling my wife about it, and I actually teared up just thinking about it because it was really really tied to a certain time in my own life, and I thought like that's something I should really chase that rather than just kind of pigeonhole myself into the genres that I tend to like more. You know, be more receptive to the ideas that stir me because I'm more likely to move an audience if I myself am moved, I think.
I was just going to say very quickly, we talked about the Babadook earlier, but a film that really, really made a tremendous impression on me was Karen Kusuma's The Invitation. And I come from mostly a dramatic side, but when I saw that film that essentially played like a drama but was couched in horror, I was like, holy smokes, this is the future of indie. This is the future of indie drama. Indie drama couched in horror so that it could reach an audience and sell and be financed. And so with Open House, I mean, that was obviously one of our goals, is to work with drama but couch it in horror. Couch it in what's essentially a home invasion story. But yeah, all the genre, you have to have a little comedy in there. You have to kind of play around a little bit, even though, I don't write comedy. You got to have a little levity here and there, so it's all kind of important.
I'm pretty sure everything I've ever written could be shoved into comedy. Hopefully it's kind of funny, but I've written a lot by myself. I've written with writing partners, and I can lead, I can follow. And so I've written horror movies where they're hilarious, but I when I think of what entertains me is when there's a little bit of a crossover where Groundhog Day has touching moments, and I like that. I like when you get to a point where you've been laughing, it's silly, and then all of a sudden it's a guy with a pretty big problem, and you're like, oh wow, what would I do? And I watch all sorts of different stuff. I don't just I admire people who are dedicated to a genre, because I'm like, oh, you know what you're doing. I imagine maybe that's not the way it is at all, but when you get told by reps, it's easier to market or brand you as a writer if you write the same thing. It's like, oh, biopic. Okay, you're going to do another biopic. Okay, next one. And that's what you do. You're the biopic guy. And for the work that I've done, kid stuff, I've worked in, superhero stuff. This one is a pretty dark comedy. It borders on drama. And so I don't know. And I think that we're all seeing, especially in a Netflix era, that genre is not distorted, but blended. You're getting tiny little subgenres. You're getting these, things fall into multiple different categories, which I like. I'm totally into that. So, and it sounds like that's what you guys are doing as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I think for me, I'm a genre guy typically. I mean, I think when I choose something, it typically falls into watch. It typically falls into some genre. I don't know if you'd say like drama being this like umbrella genre or not, but I love films of all kinds. But typically, I'll kind of think of a project as being within a specific genre, but then never try really hard never to be held down by that. I want to get comedic elements. I want to get horror elements, sometimes even within a noir piece, if it works, if it works for the scene, whatever the scene needs, I'll put it there. And in the end, it'll probably could be packaged as a very specific genre, but I'm hoping I'm never held down by that. And as far as what Sean and I did with Open House, I don't know, the idea of it being a horror film was always there, but we were playing around. We had an early draft that we kind of scrapped because we realized it wasn't even a horror movie at all. Like, we started to make a horror movie here, we turned it into this weird action movie, and it wasn't fun for us to read. And we said, let's scrap it. We got some ideas here. Let's go forward and stick to the horror, but continue to stay open until we can create that balance of drama. There's some comedy, there's some horror elements, thriller elements all through it. So to me, yeah, I just don't want to be held down by anything, but I do like the label too. It's I guess a bifurcation on my part, but whatever.
Yeah, I think, John, you just hit it on the head. It's like, what's interesting to watch as an audience? You know, because otherwise it's like, it's great and it's just going to sit there and it's never going to, you know, reach people. But I think you've got to have a pretty good bullshit detector to be like, do I actually want to watch this scene, or am I just filling the page with words? Because, you know, you can find that flow, but if there's not that substance and that truth there, then it's going to get cut on the day anyway. So might as well cut it now.
As I listen to all of you guys talk about different types of stories or whatever, I don't do anime. I don't do musicals. There's like lots of stuff I don't do that I know I don't do that I'm never going to do never. I tend not to do period pieces about, you know, old English people. And it's, so I realize that I am a little bit more specific than I think, but it's interesting. I love the topic of genre because that's how they sell our stories. That's how people find it too. And so it's important, kind of, and also not to go with what you were saying about truth. Obviously trumps all, because I'll watch a beautiful, truthful horror film more than I'll watch something that is bullshit. That is supposedly. I follow you.
Love it, great. So I'm interested in kind of, you know, what excites you the most about, you know, the craft of screenwriting. Like what about, you know, it can be a technical thing, like it could be, you know, following characters, it could be, you know, just what about the creative process of writing a screenplay excites you the most?
Being done with it.
Nice, yeah.
No, I mean, truthfully, it's just hard. I think you know, I've played some music in my life and I've done some other kinds of like creative things, and there's something about a blank page that's more intimidating than a blank canvas, or, you know, like a musician, like an instrument that's just sitting there, at least to me. But probably what excites me is when I think somebody mentioned about like a flow, like you can really just start getting into an idea and start building a world from nothing. I think that's the feeling of sort of like unbridled creative power is really thrilling, and especially when you feel like the muse is behind you. Like it just can be really impressive to feel like you're creating something from nothing, and in a way that other people might get to see on a screen. I think that's probably the most exciting thing to me, is imagining like this might actually get made and somebody might see these words and somebody else is going to take these words and actually, like, you know, frame an image and put a soundtrack behind it, and like just imagining the emotional experiences and touch points that I love about movies so much. I mean, they've shaped a lot of my life. You know, it's hard to imagine being who I am without having seen, you know, like, and I don't know, any movie that I watched when I was a kid 100 times, like Jurassic Park. You know, I've seen that countless times, and I just feel like now it's a part of me. And it's to think that somebody just sat down and wrote that, and then another person said, that's a really great, strong script, let's turn it into a movie. And I don't know, that whole thing is just, it's magical. And when it really comes together.
You know, I would say, if I'm being honest, the process of screenwriting is such a roller coaster. It's kind of hard to say, oh, I love it when, you know, I write a good scene, because that good scene will not be a good scene 2 days later to me. You know, like that happens so much. It's really hard to grab a hold of those little parts of the process and say, hey, that's the most exciting thing to me. If I'm being really honest, it's when you get that first bit of feedback. You've done this thing, you've done it all by yourself, and you've put it out. you know, into the world, uncertain whether you're insane or not. And somebody comes back with some real honest and true feedback, good or bad, that tells you you're not crazy. That's really the best part. When you go, wait a minute, wow, I just worked and I thought I was like, it could have been a nightmare. Somebody could have come back and said, what the hell is this? What is this even about? And when it comes back and they can tell you very specific things that make you realize that it really hit them as true, easily the most exciting part to me so far, at least.
I grew up in my mom had a bookstore. She's the biggest reader I've ever met. And my dad was a movie guy. He'd stay up late and watch movies, and watch bad movies too, like awesome bad movies like Beastmaster and whatever. Like he liked all that kind of stuff. And when I was, so I always felt pulled between like, oh geez, books, you know, novelist and whatever. And then when I was honest with myself, I was like, when I close my eyes, I picture scenes, I picture camera angles, I picture everything. And I love music. And so when I'm like, oh yeah, score, or oh, soundtrack, this is going to be so cool. And there's that element of sharing it together with people in a movie theater, and it's different than, so even storytelling in general has always been really important to me. I've done performance storytelling and whatever, and I really love it. But when I sit down and I'm writing stuff, I have time to think. I have some time to rewrite it 50 times, and getting that feedback cycle in and being like, oh, they responded to this, or this, or I don't even care. I like it. I'm going to do this anyway. And it feels natural. I feel, I always joke that if I was a multi-millionaire, my life would not change. I would just have nicer clothes and a bigger house. Like I would do I'd do the exact same thing I do now, which is a pretty good test of if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I just want to add a couple things. I always tell people that I think this kind of occupation, I hope it's an occupation, is really good for people with very curious minds. You know, so one thing that I really love is I may research bands that were released on Led Zeppelin's Swan Song label, or for our screenplay, Solitary Confinement Conditions. So it's really good to just kind of delve into these different worlds and then see how they come across on the page. And the other thing is, holy smokes, am I fortunate to be able to go to a coffee shop. I don't have like a real office, but I can go down. I can BS with the baristas, the other regulars, sit down and start making regurgitating everything and combining things and taking things away, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
That's exactly it. Yeah, it's just being excited to wake up every morning and work and put those hours in, and hopefully what we're writing can be shared with audiences. But I think there's it was what Stephen was tapping into, is there's a part of writing a screenplay that it's one piece of an amazing puzzle that is the whole film. And what you want to do is set every department up for success, or at least that's my approach. And it's knowing and feeling like, oh, okay, cool. Production design could, build a set this way. And then hopefully the cinematographer reads this, one action line in a very specific way so that he covers it in that certain way. And then the score, swelling and emotions, and it's going to be fantastic. But yeah, I love all that. And I get the sense from everyone here that it's more than a passion. It's a bit of a vocation. It's wanting to bring to life, the make believe and create these worlds. It's cool.
Yeah, great. Well, we have time for one last kind of question. I love how kind of deep y'all have kind of dove into this, and from each one of you, I can really just like feel the passion. It's really amazing. Kind of taking a step back though, looking at just kind of how you're getting your work out there. I know, I think John, you'd mentioned, kind of showing it to people is a really important piece for you. Kind of what are you doing outside of, submitting to competitions, to get your work out there and get it shown? Is there, if there's anything outside of that?
Yeah, no, it's funny. It's like, with screenplays, nobody wants to read your screenplay. So if somebody, like for instance, with this, the success is, this has been moving along. People are actually asking to read it, and you're like, holy smokes! Like it'll be on your it'll be on your laptop in 5 minutes. It's like, but no, it really is about just trying to get it out there. And I've written stuff that I've made, and then then you try to do that route. It's really hard. It's very hard. And I think oh my gosh, we're so fortunate to be here at Austin and be where we're at right now, because it's going to help. It's going to help. But I know you asked for things outside of film festivals, and I'm curious myself.
I do like networking, and I do like meeting people. And so I when I did move to Los Angeles, I was lucky enough to live. It really was my film school. I ended up living with I moved in with two screenwriters, and one was pretty far ahead, selling shows, doing really well. And the other one, he and I ended up becoming writing partners. We would wake up early and we would talk, and we'd be like, "Oh, we like the same stuff. Oh, we have different qualities to us, so let's collaborate." Besides other writers, I've worked really hard on trying to meet as many people as possible. And I think I'm a nice guy. I never try to force anything on anybody of like, read it, because everyone hates that. And so I've lucky, I guess, that I've met a lot of really, really supportive people over the last few years, and good producers, and I've met good reps, and I've had good luck that way, where we've gotten chances. And I love to pitch, and so we've gotten a chance to go into Netflix and stuff like that through it. How did I do it? I guess it really was a shotgun approach of I would just go out. In Toronto, I would always go to Toronto Film Festival. If I was in LA, I would go to as many events as I could. And what I've noticed is that it takes, and this is what other people told me before, is it's such a long, planting a seed takes such a long time to grow, but it does. And people I met 3 years ago, when we keep in touch and we, built a relationship, they're like, "Oh, hey, you know what? I did meet a guy here. Let me pass that along." And that's how anything I've sold and anything that I've gotten made, it has happened with either collaboration with people I respect, or it's happened with just relentless, friendly networking, where hopefully people like me and they think I'm good, and it ends up coming to fruition. Everybody wants to work with people they like. Everyone wants to work with people they feel comfortable with, or that gets what they like. And the more, I talk a lot about how watching stuff is currency. And when you're like, "Oh, you also like this. I like this too. Therefore, I wonder if we would like working together, or I wonder if we can collaborate, or maybe you can write this for me." And I get rewrite jobs that way, where people will be like, "I like this. I'm doing this. Will you fix it?" And I'm like, "Okay, yes, I'll try." So that's kind of, relentless networking, as friendly as possible.
I'm kind of curious, how many people on this went to film school? 1, 2? Interesting. There's just so many ways to get in, and I think it's just finding the right producers, a production company that's going to believe in what you're doing and the stories you want to tell. And it's exactly what Stephen was saying. Do you want to spend, if we go make a movie together, it's going to be another 18 months of us being in each other's lives and orbits and that. And do I want to be hanging out with you on set for 12, 14 hours when it's 5 a.m. and Crafty's run out of coffee and everyone's getting a little tense? You know what I mean? It's like, a lot of it is personality driven, and you're just making sure that the producer's vision is also reflected on the page, which again, Stephen was getting at too. But yeah, it's so many ways to get into it.
Great. Well, hey, thank you all so much again for joining us, and congratulations again for your huge accomplishment. Really, we wish you the best of luck on behalf of Austin Film Festival. So So yeah, great job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Congratulations, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
guys.
Congratulations.
Great
Cheers.
work.
Very grateful.